Good morning, Jeanette. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay, so my clock says we're about 1 minute shy of 10 a.m. I want to make sure that I honor you guys that are here on time. For those of you that might have be logging in at this moment in time, please don't feel like you've not heard anything or lost anything from the session. This session is being recorded, and I have put us in lecture mode. That allows me to talk to you guys and not hear anybody's background and things like that. And at the campus, it can be pretty loud, bells ringing, radios going off, people asking questions, that sort of stuff. So I'm Allison Cohen. For those of you that have just logged in, my picture's in the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to be your trainer today. I am Hayes Software Systems Technical Communication Specialist. Fancy title that basically means I do a little bit of everything. I used to be a campus coordinator, so I was in that position. Just to give you my first day on the job was 72 hours before I had to distribute to 2,500 high school students. 72 hours, and they put me in my office and they said, "There's your computer. The tech guy's busy. He doesn't know how to log you in just yet. There's that phone with the blinking light. Don't know how to check the voicemail because we don't know the passcode. That locked door over there has all the textbooks. Nobody has the key. Good luck," and walked out. That was my first day. So, needless to say, I was on campus quite a bit. Of those 72 hours, I think I spent 2 hours at home sleeping. So, yeah, I've been there. I've done that. I got that t-shirt. So, welcome. First of all, let me congratulate you guys on being campus coordinators. I think that the people who have asked you to be in this role think the world of you. They think that you are a detailed person who will definitely take care of business. And so that is an honor. So be aware. Yeah, and take it for the compliment that it is. And yes, I know that this is probably just one of your hats that you wear, not 15 others that you also wear. So I'm going to try and honor your time as quickly as I can today by going over what it is to do the beginning of the year in TIPWeb IM. Now, some of the questions and comments that you guys will have a lot to do with policy on your campus or within your district. I'm going to source some kind of various scenarios and things like that throughout the session today. But if you have ultimate questions, I would love it if you ask me in the chat, and I will tell you that sometimes I might say that's a great question, or let me answer that at the end, etc. But some of those policy and procedure questions are going to be something that you're going to need to talk to your textbook coordinator at the district level. So be aware of that. Just check in with them. They're there to support you. They want to help, but they're crazy busy too. So keep in mind that. So on the agenda today, and everybody should be seeing the agenda, we're going to start with collecting outstanding items. We're going to perform closing processes and receive shipments and campus requisitions. I will tell you, in order to get the distribution out to individuals, whether they be students or teachers, these things really should occur. Okay, you really want to do these things. In addition to the fact that if you don't receive those shipments digitally, you won't have available storage to issue out the book digitally. It'll say, "I'm sorry, you can't distribute what you don't have." And we'll get to that. We're also going to look at some common quick entry messages. Quick entry is the screen that we're going to spend some time on today. It is the fastest way to be able to issue and collect materials. And then, of course, we're going to look at printing reports and receipts and form letters, that sort of stuff. It's going to be a very brief conversation, honestly, about those areas. I will tell you that on our support center, there is an entire class just on form letters. Okay, not that it's difficult, but if you've never done it before and you want to be walked through it, that is a perfect recording for you to watch. I'm going to touch on it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, to be very honest. Okay? And question and answers I'm going to have at the end, and I will stay online with y'all as long as you want me to stay online. And so be aware that you can ask questions. I don't want you to wait. I want you to ask me questions as we go along. But if you are shy or you want to write down your questions and then at the end hit me up, feel free to do that. In addition to the fact, our technical support team, which I'm a part of, You have unlimited technical support with us. You don't have to be on a list. You don't have to have your name already in our database. You just have to be part of a district that has bought the software, and we will help you. So that 1-800 number and the support email are available to you. Please ask us questions. That's why we get a paycheck. If you don't ask us questions, we don't have job security. Okay. There's some people who said that they have been losing connectivity. I will tell you that if you are on a wireless connection, that may be an issue, or if your bandwidth is kind of slow because everybody's online right now at the campus, that might be an issue as well. Those of you guys that might be hearing an echo could be that you're logged in twice. If you're logged in twice, you may want to look on your computer and see if there's a window behind the window you're looking at, and that will resolve those echo issues. So be aware of that. Okay. A little bit more housekeeping at the bottom here. We have files to download. This is the handout that I'll be referring to throughout the session today. Please do not worry. You do not have to have that ready for this session. You don't have to print it out. It's not required. I'll be talking about it and showing you the PDF version of it on screen. So when I talk about it, you'll see what I'm talking about, I promise. But it is available for you as a resource. So if you want to download it and print it out, perfect. If you want to download it and just have it open as a PDF, that's perfect too. Over to the far right, we have the web links. These are some direct links that I thought you guys might benefit from. The poster is really nice in the fact that it has quick instructions for distributing on one side and quick instructions on how to collect on the other side. I find this very helpful when you have volunteers at your campuses. So you may want to take a look at that. In addition, there's some best practices that you guys can take a look at regarding campus distribution. Kind of like if this is your setting, then you may want to have this many scanners and this many people helping you and have this kind of table set up, etc. So those are all just general information for you. Our support center, though, is chock-a-block full. Okay, now it looks like you guys have been filling out the pods with the little questionnaires, and I thank you very much for doing that. It looks like we have a mix of technology experts, and that's okay. I love it, and I promise I won't go too techno-geek on you. At the bottom here, we have the top priority, 93%. That's what I thought. 93% of you are crazy busy, and you need to collect and distribute materials to students. All right, so with that in mind, let's jump in. I'm going to change the screen just ever so slightly. You'll see it move here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the product. So you should be seeing the home screen of my training site. Be aware that I have my chat box up on another screen, so I will be able to see you guys when you ask me questions, okay? So don't continue to use that chat box as we go through the session. Let's do this. Okay, so the home page here is my Learning Independent School District, fake school district. It is my training database. So it has a little bit of wonkiness into it. There's a little bit of crazy going on. You'll see a lot of red here, for instance. If you've never been in the system before, or if maybe this is your first time, you guys may not know that these alerts are clickable. So be aware of that. If there is a red alert on your screen, it means that it wants your attention. And you are welcome to take a look at that. All you have to do is click on it and it will jump you to that location. For instance, if you had, for instance, in-transit requisitions. A requisition is a fancy name for request. And we use that term requisitions to indicate that the campus has requested materials of the district. So in short, these are book orders from your district. And if they're in transit, they need to be received on your campus. So if your home screen has red right here, your first priority needs to be to receive those requisitions. And by clicking on it, it takes you directly to that page, and you can sort this screen. And again, you shouldn't have this many requisitions, but it's my training database, so it's a little crazy. You can search the top by status and go in transit, and then click on search, and it will show you just the ones that you need to receive that are in transit. You click on the receive icon, and then it will take you to the information about that particular order, and it'll say, okay, here's the book, the fact that it's in transit, There's 12 that were ordered. It was sent. See how old that is? It's our training database. Okay. Copies to approve were 12. Copies sent were 12. So all we have to do is click receive. You have two choices here. This is a one title requisition. You may have ones that have like 15 titles down the page or whatnot. So feel free to either click on them row by row or click on them above the blue header bar. This is going to help you receive everything as the copy sent. So that's when the math occurs. When you click receive, you're adding inventory to your storage room shelf. And so you may physically have the books already on the shelf, but digitally in our system, until you click receive, it won't actually place them there as quantities. So you definitely want to go through and receive any in-transit requisitions. Okay, and then it'll tell you, here you go, if there's all have been received, and so you can go back, and what it does is it just refreshes this grid. So you can go to the next in transit and receive that. So very, very easy to do, but something that you definitely need to do in order to be able to issue out materials. The reason why, Deborah's asking if we are a number of textbooks short, why aren't we allowed to enter the exact number received? That's a great question, Deborah. In the system, because the district is the one that's packaging these up, they need to be aware that the shipment that they intended to send to you isn't accurate. And so you'll want to communicate that with your district office. The district office can absolutely take that number down and receive just the quantity that you received, indicating that they also need to send you the remaining amount. So that's why the system makes you do that. We're using one database for the district and all of the campuses within your district. So as such, those inventory numbers, in order for them to match up, have to be treated pretty strictly. So if the campus, or I'm sorry, the district coordinator at the district office said that they sent you 200 of these books, 200 of book ABC, right? And you open the boxes and you see that you have 199, you don't have the 200. Communicating with the district office allows them to know that they shorted you a book and that they can inter-office mail you that book or get it out to you immediately, but making sure that your inventory is correct by receiving the correct amount. So just communicate with them and they'll make it better, okay? Oh, and if you guys call your district coordinator, you probably want to promise them brownies, roses, chocolate, maybe salsa and chips, that sort of thing. I'm not saying that will make your orders process a little bit faster, but it might. So keep that in mind. Um, All right, so on the home page, that's where we were talking to start with, is if these things are in red, you definitely want to take a look at them. For this time of the year, the priority here is in-transit requisitions, okay? This is what takes your textbooks on your campus, and by the way, when I click on textbooks over here on the left-hand side, you'll see at the top it says textbooks, so it reminds you where we are. Because a lot of these grids look similar. If you click on a particular book, for instance, like Homes Today and Tomorrow, if I click on it and the bottom of the screen is going to update and it's going to tell me how much inventory I have and how many I currently have in use. And this is not a good sign, right? I have 0 in inventory and 0 in use. Go ahead and you can click on something else like Holt German 1 that has 49 in inventory and 40 in use with 9 in storage. This is something that you want to see, a more healthy ISBN. But basically what's going on here is the district has sent you 49 books. You're responsible for 49 books. And currently 40 of them are issued out to people on your campus, whether those are students or staff. That means that 9 should be sitting on your backroom shelf. Okay? So that's a quick look at what's going on with that particular book. If we search the top, you have the ability to search all or any of these options here. I'm just going to search for algebra, and I'm going to click on this one here, algebra concepts and applications. I have 239, 84 in use, 110 in storage. If you want to see a little bit more details about a textbook, you can click on the details icon over here on the right hand side. Okay, and what that does is it brings up this screen. It's the textbook screen. This textbook screen allows you to see an image of the book if your district has put that in, and then more information here at the top about the book. What's interesting though is the inventory counts that you're going to see in the middle of the screen. So inventory that I'm responsible for is 239. I have 83 currently distributed, and distributed means in good standing. So there's nothing currently that I know of that's wrong with these books. And so they're going to be distributed to students and or teachers. Destroyed, I have 1, 0 lost, and 0 paid. I have 45 in transfer, so that means that if all of that's added together and subtracted from that inventory number, I have 110 in storage. Okay? If your district coordinators have set up your book course relationships, it will identify how many students and teachers are enrolled that qualify for this book. Okay, this is a student edition, so teachers do not qualify for a student edition traditionally. In your district, it may be different, but traditionally, a student edition is qualified only by the students that are enrolled, not the teachers, because the teachers usually have a teacher edition, which is a completely different ISBN number, and that's that number here at the top that that book is tracked by. Okay, so based on the enrollment information, it looks like here we have 100% enrollment. So for every student enrolled, they're allowed to have a book, so the eligibility is this, and it tells me that I am short books, that I need 265. So you can absolutely request more books of your district coordinator. I will briefly show you guys how to do that, but really right now we're going to focus on getting the data cleaned up from last year and getting it ready for next year. Reconciled totals is something I'm going to bring up in a little bit. Be aware that these are not part of the active inventory count that's over on this column. These are your active inventory counts. These are things that have been tracked in the past but have been reconciled with the district, meaning that we've identified that these are lost or paid, and means that there are 3 records in our system that have accession numbers, which is the unique identifier for each individual material, that have been marked lost or paid. So if these items come back, the system will recognize them automatically and send your district coordinator a notice asking that to be put back in the active inventory. Okay, so that's what that is. Usually we want to leave these alone in case they do come back. So again, we'll be bringing this up in a minute. These particular materials, you can just go through here and take a look at the courses that may be assigned to these books. So if your enrollment numbers do not look accurate, it may be because not all the courses have been assigned. Again, communicate with your district coordinator, but this is something that they usually handle, so don't worry too much about this. Components. Components means that there might be something for every book that's issued out, a hardcover book. These are the things that go with it or are assumed to go with it. So these things we don't barcode and track. These things are just things that we, pick up out of a box and hand out to someone. And it's usually a consumable item that we don't expect back. Okay? Material types, this means that it's been identified by the district as a student edition, so that's why you're seeing that here. Sometimes a title has multiple material types, and that's okay. For instance, if this was a Braille student edition, it would be 2 different material types, Braille and also student edition. So you can search by those things and take a look at that. All right, I'm going to back out of this, and I want to go into first the area in which you would go to collect items from students. Because as you're walking back into the building over the summer, people may have been in the building and may have been dropping things off, right? So, oh, Susie forgot this at Grandma's house over Easter. We got it when we visited her this summer, so I thought I'd come drop it off. So maybe there might be a stack of books in the corner that we need to collect. Physically, we have collected them, right? But digitally, we may not have. So how do we do that? How do we make sure they're in the system? Because we want our storage counts to be accurate. Okay? On the home screen, there is an area called Quick Links, and it's exactly that. it's saying that here we have the items that are going to get you there the quickest. In addition, we have the little information icons here that help you get more information about these areas. So there's a video and step-by-steps on how to use this right here on the screen. Okay, same thing with requisitions. If you needed to ask for more books, there's a video and step-by-steps on how to do that. Very, very easy to do. Okay, we have a question. Laura's asking, are we going to have access to the recording of this session? Yes, ma'am, you will. We are recording the session and it will be on the support center. When that recording is available, I will be sending you an email directly. Okay, and you can make sure that other colleagues or other people in your office can have access to that. No problem. You just click here on the support center and then look it up. No problem. Okay, so what we were talking about is collecting that stack of books that may have been dropped off or are currently being dropped off in your office. So click on quick links, and when you click on quick links, you just have to tell it what you want to do. So when you do this, you're going to go to collect by a session. You'll notice that there's a student distribution and a teacher distribution area. These are the three most common areas to use in quick entry. Teacher distribution without accessions and collecting them without accessions. Those are generally for elementaries that are just showing quantities issued to teachers. Not very common, and remember the whole point of the system is to track. So we want to definitely, when distributing, use those accession numbers that are on those stickers. Okay, so collect by accession. If we choose this, basically what that means is in the system, we have the ability when we check something out, and you'll see this later, that it requires the ID of the person, so we know who we're issuing the book to. It needs the ISBN of the title so that we know what material they've been assigned. Did they get a biology book? Did they get an algebra book? Did they get a world history book, etc.? Then we need the accession number, and that accession number is a fancy term for unique identifier. It is unique within your district, not just on your campus, and not within that title. It is the only number ever within your district to be used. Okay, and as such, those three bits of information, the ID, the ISBN, and the accession number, are tied together. That means during collection, all you have to do is select or scan the accession number, and it will know exactly who to return the material to. So you could pile all of your teacher materials and all of your student materials in a giant pile in the front of the school or in the gymnasium, whatever you want to do, and you'll be able to collect all of them back to the correct accounts. By clicking on go, you see here I only have the one field, accession. Now, I don't have a scanner in front of me, but of course I'm going to recommend that you use a scanner. You can use any scanner that reads symbology 128A, which is a very, very, very common symbology. If you have questions on that, go ahead and ask me after this session, and I'll go into more detail about that. So if I was scanning, I would just scan the accession barcode on my sticker that's on the book, and what it will do is it types this in for me, and it also clicks this little button for me automatically when I scan. So that makes it a whole lot easier. Now, what the screen is showing me here is that the book that was assigned to John Bickling has now been collected, and that's that number that I just typed in and clicked collect. It is an Abrando Pato Lectura book, which I probably just murdered the pronunciation of that. But John is the one who returned this book. When I was a campus coordinator, I would ask the folks to come to the window and hand me their book if they wanted a receipt. Okay, so if they wanted to prove that they turned in their book, I would absolutely accommodate that. I had volunteers that had, big bleeding books where kids could just chunk the book and walk away if they wanted. But if they wanted to be able to look at today's receipt, I could print that here, and it would give me just what was done today. So let me show you what that looks like. So this will show you that this material was identified on this receipt for this student. Here's the ID number, and here's his name, John Bickling, and there's the book with the accession number, and it's in the status of collected. At the bottom of the screen here, we have the key so that the parents or students know CLTD means collected. Okay, so I could just print that out and hand it to them. If they wanted to know if there was anything else on their account, I could certainly tell them that here on the right hand side, because when I scan the book, the person who's at the top of this list is presented over here on the right hand side with their entire book history. So John, as it says here, book history, John has the Albergano del Paso Lectura book that's in the status of collected, but he has all these other books that are marked as distributed. So we need to make sure that he's aware, especially at this time of the year, if these were issued to him last year, we want to make sure that he's turned those in. Okay, so you can say, hey, John, by the way, you've got several other books here that you need to turn in. And he's like, oh, I don't know which ones I need to turn in. In that case, you can click on the full receipt. The full receipt will give you a PDF of its entire book history, not just what was done today, but the entire book history. And as you can see, here's that book that we collected on today's date. Okay, so it will show the same information, just it will add to it with the book history. Okay, and again, it's John with student ID, grade level, etc. Okay, it also says when the receipt was printed, which I think is extremely important, because if they say, oh well, this doesn't show that I turned it in on blah blah blah. Well, if that was printed prior to that event, of course it's not going to show that. It doesn't know future events. So be aware that this information's here for you, that you can print out if you need to. Maybe a mom and dad show up, maybe a kiddo shows up. Okay, so the next kid comes up and they give me a book. 1, 5, 2, 3. They give me a book. Notice that John has been pushed to the second line and Ryan is here at the top. So that means that he's returning the accounting book, and here it is over here, Ryan's book history. We no longer see John's book history, we're now seeing Ryan's book history. We see that the accounting book is now collected, but he still has a world history book that's marked as distributed. So if a little girl handed me this book and said, I'm turning in my book, and I asked, I'm sorry, sweetheart, what is your name? And she says, my name's Jessica. Well, Jessica, Ryan thanks you very much for turning in his book. But this is not your book, sweetheart. This is Ryan's book. So maybe get with Ryan and see if he has your book. So be aware that that is something that you can utilize as well. But if you're just in the back room scanning a bunch of books, that's okay. The point is here, this is going to very quickly and easily get you materials back into history, or back into the storage count. And here is an error. So if I type in a book or I scan a book and it says this accession is not in use, there are 2 reasons why that might occur. The first one could be that out of simple human error, we don't have this book marked as distributed in TIPWeb. It may have physically been distributed to the student, but somehow this particular book may have gotten out of our book room and in the hands of someone without it being recorded in TIPWeb IM. So the fact that you're collecting a book that has not been identified as distributed is great news. That's fabulous. That's a jump up and down. You did a great job, right? We just got back a book that we didn't even know was out. So that's good. Put it in your shelf pile. Everything's good. I would double check and make sure that that is the correct accession number, though. You don't want to be typing in numbers and accidentally mistype and then assume that that book wasn't checked out. So if this happens, do double check that the accession number on the barcode is the one that's actually on the screen here highlighted in blue. Okay? The second reason that you might get this message is that maybe you just collected it. So for instance, I just collected Ryan here. Let me type in Ryan's accession number here that I just collected, right? So that matches the accession number that's right here, 1351234, 1351234. If I try to collect it again, it's going to say this accession is not in use. Why? Because I've already collected it from Ryan. So that means I'm doing my job doubly well. Again, another reason to jump up and down and say, good job, yay. All right, so this is how you collect. It's going to continue to allow you to collect as many things as you want to collect. Let's see here. So here we have Matthew. And again, Matthew is at the top now because he's the most successful scan. Ryan was pushed down, and so is John. Whoever's at the top is going to show up over here. And just to remind you, it is in red. Now, if I try to collect something that someone has tried to do partial payments on, maybe they went through and collected a bunch of materials out of the lockers in the summer. This is going to identify that there was already a partial payment on this account for Christopher for this book. So maybe Christopher, whatever your policies are on your campus, maybe Christopher's owed the refund of that partial payment. So you'll want to definitely write down his name. You'll want to write down the accession number and research that for Christopher. Okay. So if you're in the mode of collecting books on this screen, have a piece of paper or something next to you so that you can document those things that you need to research. This is a book that at the very least, I would take a sticky note and put it on the book and say, research Christopher Tambry, accession number 3098193. Okay? The reason I would write the accession number on the little sticky note is in case the sticky note falls off the book. Okay, I've lived it. I know it can happen, so just beware. Okay, so there's nothing you can do about that on this screen. You cannot collect something in the status of partial on this screen, which is what this is, partial paid. Okay, same thing with fully paid. If something's been fully paid, somebody thought they dropped it in the lake and they came in and they paid for it. Okay, great. Fabulous. So I have a full payment and this student wasn't responsible for the book. Well, maybe it was, I didn't drop it in the lake. I just put it on the bench by the lake. Somebody found it and turned it in for me. So Michael Thomas here has the ability to possibly get a full paid refund. Again, that's going to be determined by your policies on your campus and at your district level. Again, I would take a sticky at the very least, put it on the book, write down Michael's name, write down the accession number, and see what you need to do about that. Now, how to process this stuff. So let's look at Michael here. I'm just going to copy his name. And this was the 3098477 account. If you want to go and research it right away, clicking the blue arrow gets you out of that screen. Go to Students on the left-hand side. And then in here, you can just paste that name, right? And it looks like there we go, Michael A. Thomas. So there's Michael. There's that criminal justice book that's marked and paid. Here is where you can process that. So you would do a change of status. Now, if you guys have never done changes of status, there is an entire 1 hour session online that will walk you through this, but basically you click the change status icon, you tell it to return to user or return to storage. In this case, at this time of the year, I'm going to return it to storage and say issue refund sent to home address in check number, whatever that check number is that you've coordinated with your bookkeeper. Okay, and then I would say save. So that way on his account now there are no books on his account. But if you want to go in and take a look at Michael's information and run a report, you can do so. A student textbook receipt with notes will document that note that you put in about the refund, and you'll see here that on his receipt, the criminal justice book is now in the status of collected. It was processed today, and this was the note that was attached to that. So there's their textbook status, or I'm sorry, their student textbook receipt will give them that information if you choose to. If you don't want them to see those notes, you can also print this without that note attached. Okay? All right, so I am talking fast because we got just a ton of stuff to look through. Let me pull up my little PDF here that I promised you I would bring up. This is the handout that I was talking about earlier. It is 18 pages long, not because it's just a ton of stuff, but because I wanted to fully document for you guys what you would be going through. At the beginning on page 2 here is a checklist. So the first thing that you're going to do is collect any outstanding instructional materials from individuals. So as I said, the quickest way to do that is on your home page, go to Quick Links, Quick Entry, and then use Collect by Accession. Okay? Then we need to go through performing closing procedures. So that's what I want to talk about next. Okay, so the very first check can be done now. If we go through and we uh, go through and collect all those materials. Those of y'all that have started after the session began, the handout will be available when I close the session, so you'll be able to see it on the last page. Right now I'm sharing my screen, so it's not available, but I will refer to it on the screen like this so that you can see it when you do download it. Okay? No problem. All right, so we're going to do what's called performing closing procedures. Remember, these are optional. These are not required. This is meant, these closing quote unquote procedures are meant to tidy up last year's school data and make it ready for this school year. Okay? So only do the things that make sense for your campus. Okay, and I'm going to give you some guidelines here, but this check mark, these things here are going to tell you that the best practice sometimes are going to be what's listed. Okay, these are the safest choices to make that will not hurt your data. Okay. All right, so what does it look like? What are we going to be doing? So I want to talk about students first, so let's take you over to that screen. I'm going to back out of the student detail page for Michael here, and we're back to the main navigation. Under the tools section, so clicking on the left-hand side at the bottom, tools, I've brought up the tools choices. Global tools is kind of in the middle lower part of the page. And over here on the right hand side with a little icon that says May, and it looks like a calendar, is the closing screen. I'm going to pause right here and say if you do not have this icon, it's because your district coordinator has marked you as a campus user and not a campus administrator. You will need to get with your district coordinator to have them change your status from campus user to campus administrator in order to see this choice. Okay. Once you get to that ability, you come in here, and these are the 6 choices you had for closing out the school year from last year and making it ready for this year. You'll notice too that the last run date is going to be listed off to the side. Now, this is my training data. So we don't perform closings very often, so that's why we don't have any of this here. If you did this before you left in May, you'll see those dates here, okay? Or if your district coordinator bopped in and did some for you, you'll see dates that are relevant to that. The very first thing that I want to talk about, again, is just for students, okay? It's broken into student information and then teacher information. So let's talk about students first. These are the most common features that most campuses run when they want to close. So change student distributions to lost. If you come in here, you can search by title, date range, grade level, etc. Okay, you can limit what you want to change from DIST, which means in good standing, distributed, to lost. Why would you want to do that? This is going to be in particular for anything that may have been issued last school year. You don't want to show it in good standing for this upcoming school year. You want to mark it in the status of lost. Why? Because by the way, I'm so glad you asked that question. If you mark it in the status of lost, that quick entry screen, and you'll see it in a minute, that quick entry screen when we go to distribute materials is going to say, hey, this kid has a lost book on their account. Do you really want to issue another book to this kid? So you have the choice at that point to say, hey, kiddo, looks like you have a book that you owe us. Please go get that, and then we'll check out another book to you when you've gotten that taken care of. If you can't find that book, this is how much it costs. Okay? So it's going to flag you and allow you to have that touch base with them so that you can talk to them in person if you want to. And again, that's relevant to your policies and procedures for every campus and every district. It's a little bit different. Okay, what happens if we just hit go right now? We haven't touched anything really. Notice that the changed student distributions to lost means that any distribution date is going to be included in this. Any title is going to be included in this, and any grade is going to be included in this. Okay, well that's all right. If you haven't started distributing materials for this upcoming school year. If you have not done that, then great, just hit go. And it makes sure that anything that was done last year for students only, any distributions are now marked as lost. Okay, and then that way you can run reports and see who owes you things, and it'll again populate on the quick entry screen. If you have started distributing for this upcoming school year, then what you might want to do is come to the date tab at the top here and choose prior to. Okay, and so prior to, and I would say prior to maybe I want to move any student's distribution to the lost status if it was issued out prior to, say, maybe August 1st of 2005 or 2015. Okay, and then you can hit go. And what that looks like is when we hit go, it's going to say the following actions will change books to lost based on your filters. And you see how that filter says date prior to 8/1/2015. You hit OK, it's going to sit here and think for a little bit. The gears are turning. It's telling you to wait and be patient. And then what it'll do is it'll give us a success message to let us know that those distributions are now lost. Okay, here we go. Here we go, success. Processing is complete. All right, so now we can just back out, and you see the last run date has now been updated. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to come here to remove archive book history. I know that sounds scary. It sounds scary, but as you'll see from the handout here, and I'll zoom in on this just a little bit. So to remove book history, best practices, if you are in doubt, just remove the collected transactions. Okay, so what does that look like? Let me show you. Going into remove and archive book history, you have three choices in this screen. Remember what I talked about reconciled was going to come up? This is the reconciled areas. So remove archive collected transaction, best practice says that that's the easiest thing to do. What this does, and it sounds dramatic, but all this does is it removes any record on a student, remember we're just doing for students, on a student account that's in the status of collected, right? So that's a non-issue. They checked out a book and they turned it in. They don't owe me anything for that record. So anytime a distribution is marked as collected, you can archive that in part of our database or in part of your database for your district, and you can look it up later if you need to. It just gets it off their receipt. So that way you don't have a ton of stuff from years past or even this last year if you want to print a receipt showing that they've turned in a material. And you certainly don't want to do that if you're distributing something and say, okay, here's a list of your distributions, and they've got like 20 books on their receipt. Not only does that make the receipt really long, it's confusing, right? Because it's showing stuff from last year. So just remove the collected transaction, and you can do it for all dates, or if you want to show the things that are prior to maybe summer school. Maybe you had summer school going on and you want to prove that they turned in their summer school book. Maybe mom and dad need to see that the summer school book was turned in. Just to be safe, maybe you say prior to date of, June 1st, 2015. And it'll move all collections that qualify for that to your archive. So it gets it off of their account, okay? If that's the case, we'll just go ahead and say all dates, and I'm going to agree to this. Notice that if you agree, this process cannot be undone, which isn't a big deal, again, because it's just collected records. Don't interrupt it, don't close it, but if you have questions, give us a call, okay? Then we hit go, and it's going to think again, and it's going to process, and it's basically going to look for all those collected records, and it's going to move them to our archives, making that receipt pretty much empty. We're hoping, right? In a perfect world. So now that that's updated. Okay, so let's go through this again. So if we have a student, let's say Mary checked out 8 books last year, and she returned all 8 books, and we scanned all 8 books as collected. So all 8 of her books said CLTD. Now if we go to Mary's account, because we just removed and archived all of her history, she should have nothing on her book history, okay? And so we can easily go into here and say any student that has a cleared record. Okay, so if you go into their book history and they got nada because all of that was put in the archives, you can come in here and remove students who no longer go to your school. Okay, so if they've graduated and moved on to the next level of education, they've withdrawn because they moved across, the country, what have you. You can come in here and say any kiddo who does not owe me a thing. Okay, so students who owe you charges, students who owe you books, students who owe you payments, etc. Those students are exempt from this. They will not be removed. They will not be collected. Only students who have nothing in their book history, owe you nothing, will qualify for this process. So it's a very safe process. That being said, I would not run this in the morning. I would run this at the end of your business day. Okay? Running this at the end of the business day means that by removing all students with no distributions, you're removing students who may have left and are not coming back, but you may also be removing students who do go to your school. Now, take a deep breath. That's not a big deal, okay? Blood pressure down. If you do this at the end of your school day, okay, overnight, the system will re-import just your active students so that in the morning, you'll be back to just the kiddos that you need to distribute books to. So again, if you're going to do this, and you don't have to, but if you want to do this so that you don't see kiddos who have no longer been on your campus, you can do it at the end of the school day and allow for that import to run overnight so that the next morning you have all the kiddos that you want. Okay? It's going to say go and it's going to process just like the other one. I'm going to have it sit here and process for you just a little bit. And what it's going to do, it's going to remove all those students and put them in the archive. So I can still look them up. I can still look up all of their collected archived records. They're just not in my active reports. It helps when you're printing barcode reports for distributions, so that you're not getting like 2,000, barcodes when really you only have 500 kids on campus. That's, waste of paper, etc. So this can be very, very helpful, and we get a lot of calls asking how to kind of remove the kids that no longer go to that campus, and this is exactly how you do that. However, if they owe you something, it's not going to qualify to remove them. They will continue to stay in your account or in your database, your active database, if they owe you something. And again, if they owe you charges, okay, so if you guys are using charges at all, that charges feature will keep them out of this process. If they owe you for lost books, if they owe you for partial payments, if they show that they have a payment on their account, it will not qualify them for this. Okay? All right. So let's go back just to kind of show you this. Again, there's those last run dates. So as you can see, it's just going to keep updating this. Now, I did skip over the reconciled parts. Okay, so in that second option, remove archive reconciled paid and reconciled lost. I'm going to tell you that in these sections, I would either ignore this, because if those books ever come back, I want to know about it. I want it to be added back into my inventory automatically. I don't want to have to do that manually. So I wouldn't touch this if you're not really 100% certain about it. If you do go into this, I will tell you that if you're at a high school, for instance, in your 4 years, I would say a prior to date of 4 years ago. Okay, so that at least you have data on students that may have reconciled items on their account that are within 4 years of being on your campus, so that you're not losing something that maybe you did in May or even a year ago. Because if, again, they went to grandma's house after, not seeing her for a year, they may come back with a book that you want to turn in. So removing those records is not something that I advocate, but I would just do it based on how many years students are at your school. So if you are at a middle school and your kiddos are there for 3 years, 6th, 7th, and 8th, then I would put in here a date prior to 3 years ago. That way it would help you. Same thing with removing and reconciling lost. Okay, anything that was lost 3 years ago likely is not going to come back. So again, just however many years kids are at your campus, I would put that in the prior to date. You do not want to remove this if you marked things lost and they were reconciled over the summer. You do not want to remove that as of this school year. It's just not going to, you'll have a lot of books that get turned in and it'll say book not in use, and it won't be automatically added back to your inventory. It causes more problems, okay? So if in doubt, just do the top choice, the collected transactions. If you don't want to mess with the bottom two, you do not have to, okay? All right, same thing with teachers. Not a lot of campuses want to change their teacher distributions to lost. If you do, that option is available to you. It looks just like the student one. Same thing with remove archive book history for teachers. If your teachers have just a ton of collected materials on their account, this will get rid of it. Teachers usually don't have reconciled records, so you don't have to worry about that. So just collected books. Also, if you have any transfers off of a teacher account. So one teacher said, oh, I lent that to the teacher down the hall, and so you moved it from teacher A to teacher B. It's going to leave a transfer account on the teacher A. This will also clean that up because it's a thing that they're not responsible for anymore. Okay, so that's real easy to do. And remove archive cleared teachers. Again, if a teacher has nothing on their account, you can remove them and put them in the archives. Okay, so you can process that just like you did the students. Okay, and again, this handout that I've been showing you has that processing here. Okay. All right, so teachers' tools, closing, we just did that. Let's talk about receiving all instructional materials into TIPWeb. Again, you can get to that from the home page, and what this means is that you want your storage counts to match what's actually in storage. So I'm going to get out of here and go back to my home page. And this is, again, what we talked about first off. If this is red, if you have something here on your homepage that says in transit requisitions and it's in red and it has a count, that means that your district has shipped you something and you need to digitally receive it. You may have physically received it, unboxed it, and shelved it. That's great. That prepares you to start issuing out to students. But once you get to the inventory that was prior to that shipment, that 101st book, let's say, it's going to say, sorry, you can't issue what you don't have, and it's because you may not have received that here. So go back and receive those transactions, those campus requisitions, okay? And again, that's the quickest way to get there. You can also get there by going to the requisition screen under quick links or going into inventory and going to campus requisitions, okay? And again, you're looking for anything that's in the status of entry. Okay, in transit, you just receive. As you can see, the receive icon is lit up. Very, very easy to do. Okay? All right, so let's go back to our handout, make sure that we're on track. Receive all instructional materials in TIPWeb. Again, that's campus requisitions and receive. Those are things that are in transit. Review and print reports to identify individuals that have outstanding items. Okay, so this means that if you have maybe a roundup day on your campus, let's say that, like for instance, today, my daughter, my eldest daughter, is in 6th grade. She's a middle schooler, and I'm secretly crying on the inside, but that's okay. She has a roundup day today. So she has an orientation for 6th grade. They are issuing her out core curriculum materials today. So if that's the case, you may want to talk with your feeding schools that are feeding into you. Have them send you a report, like if that middle school had their elementaries sending them a report of anything that's outstanding, they can say, oh, sorry, kiddo, you still need to turn that into the elementary school down the street, right? Or if, for instance, I worked at a high school, if I had kiddos coming in and saying, oh, I need to check out this book, well, I'm sorry, I can't check out that book because you need to turn this in, or you can't get a locker because you need to turn this in. At the high school I worked at, we put all of these reports onto kind of an outstanding or obligations report. The librarian contributed to it, band, several of the other extracurricular activities, anything that was checked out and may not have been checked back in, went on this report. And it compiled into one giant list, and they had to get past the gatekeeper with that list before they could go down the hall and get their locker, get a new ID, get a parking permit, get books, etc. Okay, so if that's something that you want to do right here, this is a great title. It's called Campus Distribution by Title Report. It will give you the student and distribution records in your system. You can also do student textbook status report. That's a great one, but it's only going to give you student transactions. Okay, so what does it look like? So that's a great question. Let's go look. All right, so on the main navigation bar here on the left-hand side, go to reports. And we're going to come in here to, I like all reports because it shows me everything. And you're going to come in here to campus distributions by title report. If you click on the row and it stays orange, you'll see here that it tells you what the filters are, what you can sort the report bar by, and it gives you a description of why you might use this. Okay, so just FYI, that's available to you. You can filter this report. You can also pull out the Excel spreadsheet of this, or a spreadsheet, CSV. Okay, if I filter this report by people who just have losses, okay, or people who might owe me partial payments. Okay, so those are people who owe me things or owe me money. I can do this here by saying transaction type equals lost or transaction type equals partial payment. I don't want to say and here. If I say and, then that means that the record has to have a loss and a partial payment on it before it'll show me that item. That's not what we want. We want or. So we click on the white scroll icon, and what this does is it produces a PDF. Okay, you can again get this in a spreadsheet format if you want to. And this report, which is a campus distribution by title report, it will tell you when you printed it, so you know the last time you printed it. It will give you all of the people who have this book out in the status of lost or partial paid. Okay, and it tells you here the student ID, the student name, the status, and the accession number. Okay. In addition to that, we've got here's the book 1. Here's accounting. Here's ag. Here's American history. And as we scroll down, we can see that this report's rather lengthy for my training database. I'm trying to find one that has a partial, guys. I'm sorry. Here we go. Okay, so in carpentry, building, and construction, I have Megan, Gloria, Amanda, Heather, and Brittany who have lost materials. But here I also have Christopher who has that partial book, right? That partial payment. And then Amelia and Cody have lost books. Okay, so that is a choice. Now, if you're combining this list with others, you may want to print out the spreadsheet. Okay, so again, all reports, campus distributions by title, and you pull out the spreadsheet. When you click on that, it's going to give you everything, and you'll have to filter this spreadsheet inside the spreadsheet program that's on your computer. Now, I have Microsoft Excel, so that's what it opens for me. Okay, so here's the status, and you see here that I have lost, paid, distributed, destroyed, etc. You can come over here between the A and the 1, select that, click on filter, and filter by lost. Let's say lost, pay 1, pay 2, partial, and destroyed. Those are people who owe me stuff. And then it gives me this big long list of people. It tells me what the book is. It tells me who the person is, and it even tells me if it's a student or a teacher. Okay, so really, really good information here, and you have all of those tools available to you. If in turn you want to see who has distributed records, let's see here. You can do that, and it'll show you just the distributed records. Okay, and these are all teachers because I didn't mark any teacher distributions as lost. Make sense? Okay. So I'm going to close that, and the other one that I mentioned to you that's on the checklist is the student status report. The student status report will only give you those items for student distribution, so it will ignore teacher distributions. Okay, And again, you can filter and you can pull up the spreadsheet. If you want to, you can just, it'll just show you all student distributions that are currently in the system. Deborah's asking, so asking for two different report types must be filtered by or and not and. So the report types, if you're filtering by multiple filters, you'll need to say or and because it needs to know how to filter that data. So it's not a different report type, it's just the filters that you set. You don't have to say or and if you only have one filter applied. So be aware of that. Jessica's asking, where can the reference document be found? Okay. Yeah, you guys, we're running out of time, aren't we? Okay, so print barcode reports, those are in here. Those are also in the reports. Distribute instructional materials. You're going to use quick entry. For those of you guys that need to leave, it's going to be in the recording. It's also available on our support center currently. So if you have to go, it's okay. You'll get that in an email later today where this document is. I do, though, want to make sure that you guys feel comfortable distributing things to people. So let me do that very, very quickly before you guys need to run, okay? So again, if you're on home, when you log in and you need to distribute, go directly to quick entry. The long way, quote unquote, to get there is going automation, quick data entry, and then say student distribution, okay? Student distribution, I'm going to tell you do not remember values and say go. What this is going to ask you for the ID of the student. So if you need a barcode report because maybe your student ID numbers or student IDs don't have barcodes to scan an ID number on, you absolutely can do that. I think it's is the name of this student. And here's Gina. So this is what I was alluding to earlier. If a student has lost books on their account, it will flag you as soon as you put in the ID number. It doesn't mean that you can't distribute. Notice that this is still available to distribute. You absolutely can do that. You just can't distribute. It's just giving you the information, and then you're going to be able to say, okay, you got some lost books on your account. You need to take care of this. Okay. Um, and then you could I want to make sure that I'm giving them a different book. Um, I didn't grab an ISBN. Let me grab an ISBN real quick. Not prepared. I apologize. Okay. I have one of these algebra braille books available to me. If I go back into automation, go to quick entry, I can go into student distribution, hit go, and put in 6, it's going to say Gina has lost books, just to show you that you can issue the book out to her. Even though she has lost books, you absolutely can. So be aware of that if you have volunteers. If your volunteers are helping, make sure they're paying attention to those alerts. Otherwise, they'll just roll over them. And the accession number is scanned in as well. And now this book has been issued to Gina. Okay? And you just keep adding, you just keep scanning. Notice that the scanning went right back up to the top and you just scan ID, ISBN, accession, ID, ISBN, accession. And then that way we're very certain of who has the book, what book they have, and which one they have. Okay? Any questions on this? Same thing with teachers. You absolutely can issue to teachers. Let's say, for instance, let's do if we go into quick data entry and we choose teacher distribution, if we're having an entire, teachers coming in and saying, I need all of one book, you can tell it to remember the ISBN and then hit go. What it will do is it'll ask you for the ISBN first, and then it will remember it and kind of lock it down, okay? And then you put in the accession or the ID of the teacher, and then all you have to do is scan the accession field. And scan, 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 that's all you have to do. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think that's a teacher ID. Yep, here's Nalay Adcock. and you just put in the session number. Notice that it's remembering the lay and it's remembering the title. You can just come down here and say, okay, yeah, I'm also giving it to Malay, and here's the next book. If you want it to also remember Malay, you can go back using the recycle or the little refresh button and tell it to do teacher distribution, remember ID and ISBN for the teachers, and hit go and say, okay, 1015 is the teacher, and here's the book. And then all it's going to ask you for is that a session number, and you can just sit there and scan, 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 scan. Okay? See how fast that goes? And again, it's going out to Malay, and if you want to print a full receipt or a today receipt, you absolutely can. Okay. I've got a couple questions here. Is distribution just for hardcover books or consumables too? Consumables can be distributed to teachers. I would recommend doing that in quantity, but check with your district coordinator to see what their recommendations are. I would tell you anything that has a sticker on it provided by the district probably needs to be scanned. That would be the best advice I can give you, but definitely check with your district coordinator. Elva's asking, I need to step out of the meeting. Yes, everything is going to be recorded, no problem. Okay, so that's distributing to teachers and students. It's super duper easy and fun and fast. And if you've got volunteers, definitely get them that poster that helps them quickly understand how to do the distribution. Print and provide distribution information to individuals. If you want to bulk print receipts after you've issued textbooks to teachers, you can do that in the report screen and then just put their receipts in their boxes. Very easy to do. You just go to reports, all reports, and then print the teacher textbook receipt in full, and it will print every single receipt for every single teacher that has a distribution. Okay? If you want to filter that for some reason, you absolutely can. Say maybe you're only interested in giving receipts to teachers for algebra books. You can filter that for that as well. And it's going to follow that same filter process that we showed you earlier. If you want to bulk print receipts, you can do that for students as well. Again, that's reports, all reports, student textbook receipts. And it's up to you how you want to do that. Some smaller campuses do this and then hand them out to the students so that they have a notice of how to, what books they have, how much they cost, that it's their responsibility, etc. You can also print a form letter for student distributions. It's going to say, Dear Parent Guardians of, and then you can do what's called a student contract letter. This student contract letter allows you to put some verbiage that backs up your policies regarding textbooks on your campus and or district, in addition to their distributions. Let me show you what that looks like. So in the report section, I'm going to go to form letters, and I'm going to go to student contract letter, and I'm going to hit filter, and I want to see all students that say have the status of distributed, which isn't going to be a lot right now because I messed with it. And then it's going to produce a rich text file, which is an RTF file. It opens in any word processing document. And here's that letter. You have the ability to edit this, and that's something that's going to be in the form letter editor. So give us a call if you need help with that. But it basically says, here, parent, here's our policy. This is your student's information. Here's the material issued out to them. Okay? That's that Braille book. It's a very expensive book. It's $1,200. Good gracious. Okay. Can you email reports from TIPWeb? You can, if you have Adobe Acrobat as a PDF reader. Generally, when you open the PDF, for instance, like this is a PDF, in Adobe Acrobat, you can click on the little envelope here at the top or go into, say, attach to email. And in Adobe Acrobat, it will allow you to pull open your email client. I have Outlook, and it already attaches this email or this report to the email And then I can just say, okay, Colleen. Aha, Colleen, I have you in there. And send you my signature. There you go. Da 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 da. And off it goes, right? Okay, so Colleen, you should get an email from me. Um, so Danetta's asking, how do I filter a report to generate textbooks by teacher? Great, great, great. That's going to be the textbook receipt if you want the receipts to hand out to teachers. If you want a list of just distributions, the teacher, let's see here, teacher's textbook status report is available, and that will be just a list of teacher distributions. And again, that's available as a spreadsheet, so you can do that. Okay. Barcode reports. You guys are going to want to look at barcode reports for those of you that need to have barcodes either for your teachers or for your students. Any student that's in your student grid or any teacher that's in your teacher grid qualifies to use the ID number that's printed on in that grid into an actual barcode. So let me show you what this looks like. And it sorts them alphabetically. I've had some campuses actually put those in plastic sheets and put it in a binder so that they can open it very quickly and have that accessible to them so that they can pull that out and then just scan that barcode so that they can scan the ID number and not accidentally transverse numbers. Okay? Really great to have. This is teachers. There's also the students one as well. I've seen some campuses actually break the student distributions down by grade level. So they have an 8th grade book, a binder, or a 6th grade binder, and then they pull it open so that they can scan that ID number. And again, if your ID's on the ID, the little plastic IDs that they're issued, if these match them, then just use their ID cards, right? But if they don't have an ID card, this is an option for you. Okay. How do I collect more than one book at a time from a teacher? For example, they have left and I need to collect their class set of books. Okay, that's a great question. Go to teachers. So on the left-hand side, go to teachers. Let's see here. Here's Paula. When I click on Paula's name, notice her row stays orange and her distributions are showing here at the bottom. She has 2 copies of each, okay? And you can come here to collect. And what this does is it allows you to collect all of the copies for that particular ISBN. So in this case, I could collect all or both of those with pressing the collect all button, and now there's no records to display. So if we go back to Paula, now she only has 3 ISBNs issued. So that's the best thing that I can offer you there. I'm always going to recommend, though, that you scan those books. Okay, you want to scan them back in. That way you know that you have those books back. And then it can identify the ones that are missing. Assuming that there's all of these is sometimes problematic, so be aware of that. How do we remove teachers from the barcode list if they have left the district? Linda, that's part of the closing procedure, making sure that when you click on a teacher, if they have any distributions, you want to get it off so that you can have a cleared teacher report, and then removing them in the closing screen, which I mentioned earlier in this session. So the handout will cover that. You can also call us and we'll walk you through that. Okay. We have a teacher listed twice, one with one name in normal, probably because the ID number is listed twice. The teacher's in there twice because it's keying off of the ID number. Okay. So for instance, let's take a look here. Here's Paula. If I put in Paula with a different ID number, her name would still be Paula. It would just be a different ID number. So what we need to do is we need to, again, go through the closing process, Linda, and get rid of those teachers that don't have any distributions on their account, have had all of their records archived, and then also clean those out. But do that at the end of the day, okay, so that you're not removing teachers that you do want to distribute things to. All right, we have officially run over, so let me go ahead and stop the share. I'm going to also change the screen just a little bit. And I want to remind you guys that you have unlimited technical support with us. Please, please, please give us a call or email us. We do want to help you. We have some Saturday hours this upcoming Saturday. You may have seen that in my email. The Saturday hours are going to be, let's see, I believe they're this Saturday. Yes, they're this Saturday the 15th, August 15th, and August 22nd from 8 a.m. to 12 noon Central Standard Time. So if you are stuck at the school and you need help, there is a live person available for you on Saturday morning. That doesn't mean that we're not here during the week. We are. But if you're stuck on the weekend and need help, you do have live help available to you. Shoot us an email or call us anytime. You don't have to be on a special list. We absolutely will help you, but we do help people in the order in which they call. So if you get someone on the phone asking to take your case, please give them your information. That way you're in the queue and you are the next person that we're going to call back. If you have an open case with us, make sure that you give us that case number and we will open that up and take a look at it and make sure that everything's okay. Guys, on the support center, we also have other recordings of past sessions that we've delivered. Some of those sessions include things like the form letters. There's also an entire session just on reports and filtering and sorting. So if you want to take a look at that, that's also available to you as well. So I really, really encourage you guys to hit up that support center. It's got some just amazing information in there. Yes, there's some recordings of past sessions, and you may not want to spend, an hour watching the video, and I completely understand that. But in the video is usually the handout. In addition to that, your help icon in the upper right-hand corner. Anytime you're in the screen, you can click on that help icon, and it will be talking about when it opens. It will talk about the area in the program that you're at. So if you're on the campus requisition screen, for instance, you can click on help and it will immediately start talking about campus requisitions. If you're in quick entry and you click on help, it will immediately start talking about quick entry. Okay, so that's available to you guys. Please use that. It's there for you guys. And of course, you have us to call and we will help. You're very, very welcome. I'm so glad you guys were able to join us today. And I hope to see you guys back in more sessions. Okay. Well, if there are no questions, I'll go ahead and sign out. I have to get back on the support line and take care of calls that are coming in. So I will talk to you guys on the customer support line if you guys call in. And you have a wonderful rest of the day. And again, I will email you with the recording link so that you have that in case you want to rewatch it or access the handout at a later time. Okay? So thank you so much for joining me. Again, this is Allison Cohen. You have unlimited technical support with us here at Hayes for TIPWeb. Give us a call at 1-800-495-5993 or email us at support@hayessoft.com. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Welcome back to school. Bye-bye.